Hello, I'm CodeComplete85, and welcome to part 1 of this Hisako guide. I wanted to do this guide because the existing video guides for this character are both very surface level and based on how she was near her release back in Season 2. Now that we're in the final release of this game, this character's mechanics have changed, and there's a lot of tech and strategy that have been discovered since then. However, we will be starting with a very basic overview of the character, covering the basic properties of this character's moves, mechanics, and overall strengths and weaknesses. First of all, we need to talk about Wrath Meter, as it is absolutely central to this character. Wrath Meter is depleted by using medium and heavy normals or special moves. It is replenished by not attacking, dashing, jumping, or being in block stun, hit stun, or knockdown. After meeting these conditions for 30 frames, you will start to regenerate Wrath, and it regenerates at a rate of 40 frames for the whole bar. A strange exception is that her wake-up animation is also considered a valid regeneration state. Starting 32 frames before becoming vulnerable, Hisako will have been regenerating Wrath for 2 frames before wake-up. So why is Wrath important? With full Wrath, every medium and heavy normal becomes a counter hit. These counter hits create huge amounts of hit stop frames, where the game stops and the opponent shakes in place, allowing for an easy hit confirm. Even without a confirm, the frame advantage on these normals is super high, especially on certain normals that stagger. Both the ground and air version of On Ryo Zan also counter-hit with full Wrath, but the air version is particularly important. This counter-hit Air On Ryo Zan starts a combo instead of just causing a hard knockdown, as does her influence command grab. Hisako can also spend half a Wrath meter when the cross swords in the bar are lit up to cancel her grounded normals and non-shadow On Ryo Zan possession into her parry or teleport. Overall, this character's movement is strange. Hisako's walk speed is the worst of the game, with both forward and backward walk speed being super slow. Her jump is also somewhat floaty and doesn't cover much horizontal distance. Her back dash is also pretty bad. It doesn't cover much distance and is a total of 36 frames. So there are a fair amount of punishable frames after the standard 7 frames of invincibility and 11 frames of throw invincibility have run out. She also has a teleport. However, this teleport is very slow, with 5 frames at the end where you are completely punishable. Her forward dash, however, is quite easily the best in the game. It is only 18 frames, covers a lot of distance, and brings her hurt box very low to the ground, allowing her to sneak under certain attacks. It can even be special cancelled a few frames early. Being 18 frames, it is very difficult to check this dash with low hitting attacks on reaction. Hisako also has a wall jump. It's good for quickly getting out of the corner between life bars, and okay sometimes for chasing people. But overall, be careful about using this. The amount of time spent on the wall makes this relatively easy to catch you in the air. While Hisako's throw range is unusually bad, her throw can still be very useful. Hisako is at +6 advantage after this throw, which allows for a light or medium manual into a short combo. However, because it leaves you +6 and right in the opponent's face, it is great for resets as well. Back throw is very much like forward throw, except for the side switch, which may or may not be an advantage depending on where you are on screen, and the damage. The back throw does slightly less damage, but adds a lot of potential damage, whereas the forward throw adds none. Let's start with her light normals. First, all of them have the standard 5 frame startup. On Ryo Zan is the only thing Hisako has that can combo from normals, and starts up in 16 frames at a minimum, and her light normals don't have the hit stun to actually combo from a move this slow, unless she gets a counter hit with standing light punch, crouching light punch, or crouching light kick. Standing light kick does not have the hit stun to combo even on counter hit. All light normals, however, have the ability to combo into Shadow On Ryo Zan, which starts up in only 8 frames. Standing light punch is one of the most useful light normals, as it covers the most distance. If you have a situation where you know your opponent is punishable with a 5-frame move, Standing Light Punch is the most likely to reach them. If you have a bar of meter, Standing Light Punch cancelled in the Shadow On Ryo Zan is a guaranteed full combo punish in this situation. Standing Light Punch also has very low pushback, which can be useful for setting up some tick throws. It also flips out opponents in the air. Crouching Light Punch is a chainable normal that can be chained from itself or from Standing Light Punch. Standing Light Kick is also chainable, and can combo only into Shadow On Ryo Zan, even on counter hit. It has the most active frames, making it an easier meaty. Crouching light kick is the other very useful light normal. It's chainable like crouching light punch and standing light kick, but crouching light kick also hits low. Okay, on to medium normals. Close medium punch and close medium kick are not super notable, other than the fact they start up in 6 frames, which makes them the fastest meterless combo starters and able to combo off a regular throw. Standing medium punch is 8 frames, and for an 8 frame normal covers a huge amount of distance. This is definitely one of her most important pokes. Crouching medium punch is also 8 frames and has an amazing 7 active frames. This allows you to catch both jumps and backdashes with the right timing. It's also your fastest anti-air, but it has a narrow hitbox. Standing medium kick is also 8 frames, but has very limited use. Crouching medium kick is a low-hitting 7-frame normal that is an excellent poke at closer ranges, especially when you see your opponent trying to walk in, and has 4 active frames for meaties. This is your go-to low threat. Okay, on to heavies. Close heavy punch and close heavy kick both start up in 8 frames. Generally, close heavy kick is preferred as it has better frame advantage. Both will stagger on counter hit. Standing heavy punch starts up in 16 frames and has great range. It's good for controlling space and fishing for hits. Crouching heavy punch is a slow but otherwise excellent anti-air. It technically starts up in 11 frames, but the hitbox starts low and goes upward over its 6 active frames. So it can take 16 frames to reach opponents up high. With full wrath or a counter hit, this launches high into the air with multiple follow-up options. Follow-ups are possible but more difficult without wrath or counter hit. Standing heavy kick has a slow startup of 20 frames. However, it is +6 on both block and hit and staggers on counter hit. It also steps back during startup, which can be used to sidestep attacks, most notably wake up DPs. Crouching heavy kick is an exceptional sweep, with 9 frame startup, huge range, and a safe -3 on block. Finally, jumping normals. Jumping light punch is a fast air-to-air that will flip out opponents. It can also be used in juggle situations. Jumping light kick is a downward striking attack. With its low block or hit stun and pushback, jumping light kick can be useful for setting up a tick grab. Jumping medium punch is a pretty fast air-to-air normal with good range. It's fine as a jump in too. Jumping medium kick is mostly inferior to jumping heavy kick. However, because of its visual similarity to jumping heavy kick, it can be used to do a fake cross-up to set up a lower throw. Jumping heavy punch is a slower air normal with 13 frame startup but has great range. It's a great air-to-air and is often the best way to catch characters with great air mobility. It can also be good for long-range jump-ins. Jumping heavy kick is Hisako's best jumping normal. It hits at a downward angle that makes it great for normal jump-ins. It can also cross up and allows for very ambiguous cross-ups after her hard knockdowns or even in neutral. Hisako also has a command normal in the form of back plus heavy kick. This is a slow teleport to behind your opponent. It is highly reactable and has a 5-frame punish window on the end of it, where you cannot even pop instinct. This move is very risky against experienced opponents, but it's not entirely useless. 4 frames into its startup, the hurt box goes lower to the ground, though not as low as the forward dash. You are also invincible underground during the active frames. Some moves, most notably some projectiles, are so slow that you can punish with descent, or at least not get punished yourself. You may also get a read on a faster projectile and arrive in time to punish. Also, a fair amount of players simply won't attempt to punish descent, allowing you to close some distance for free. Okay, that's it for normals. Let's go over our special moves. Vengeance is a parry with instant 1-frame startup. Press all 3 punches to parry mid and high attacks, or all 3 kicks to parry low attacks. This only works on physical strikes, not projectiles, throws, or unblockables. A successful parry opens a full combo. Vengeance is an important part of Hisako's game plan, allowing you to punish predictable patterns and plant fear and doubt in your opponent's offense. On Ryo Zan is a Rekka-type special with up to 3 strikes in succession. The first hit is executed with quarter circle forward punch, and it's a pretty standard forward advancing special attack. It also consumes a very low amount of wrath meter. The 3 different strengths vary in their startup time, with light and medium taking 16 frames and heavy taking 19 frames. The strengths also step forward different distances, with higher strengths moving further forward. All 3 variations are on paper hugely unsafe on block, being -16 to -25. However, you can cancel into block very early into the recovery frames. from the 11th frame onwards, making it safe to strikes. Because of this, cancelling a normal into the first hit of On Ryo Zan is a fairly safe and easy way to hit confirm. The second and third hits work differently. They are executed with just a single punch button. Light is a 22 or 24 frame low attack, medium is a 26 frame overhead attack, and heavy is a relatively fast 19 or 22 frame mid attack with a high hitbox that catches jumps. When used as fast as possible, these fast heavy hits leave 3 to 5 frame gaps, preventing people from trying to interrupt with jabs or throws. The hitboxes of these heavy hits reach high too, preventing people from trying to escape, and the 12 active frames will catch any backdash. The light and medium hits, being slower, leave larger gaps, 6 to 8 frames for light, and 8 to 10 frames for medium. This allows your opponent to interrupt, but can be used to mix people low or high. Being 22 to 26 frames though, do note that these are reactively blockable. Second hits are the most punishable, and third hits are still unsafe. This is mitigated by the ability to cancel at any point in the whole Rekka and a Vengeance Parry or Descent teleport with half Wrath. Also, a blocked third heavy hit can be cancelled late into Shadow Influence that will prevent punish attempts. Rekka hits can also be delayed somewhat, to bait people into thinking the coast is clear. Overall, the usage of On Ryo Zan can be very complex, but to keep things short in this overview, you should test how people try to defend against your Rekkas, and adjust your usage to punish them for it. Shadow On Ryo Zan does 5 mid-hitting swipes, advancing across the screen with each swipe. It has huge range and a lot of corner carry. It's also +1 on block, so you can use this to force your way in when your opponent has no meter. This move is also projectile invulnerable up through the end of the 4th swipe, so it can be used to blow through projectiles. Also, because of its 8 frame startup and long range, it can act as a great whiff punish. One thing to note though is that at the edge of the first hit's range, the first hit can connect, but the second can whiff, allowing them to recover and block, or even shadow counter with meter. Air On Ryo Zan bears almost no resemblance to its grounded counterpart. It is a single hit in the air but swings with a large hitbox, particularly the heavy version. It has relatively slow startup, 16 frames for light, 24 for medium, 28 for heavy. If you have full Wrath, it will recapture and begin a combo. If not, it will cause a short, hard knockdown. This move is most useful performed from the ground with a Tiger Knee motion. This adds 8 frames to the startup. The light Tiger Knee produces a fast overhead attack. Medium and heavy are slower, are very difficult to tell apart, and have different amounts of forward travel, so there are situations where medium will not cross up, but heavy will. This move alters your jump arc, so it can foil attempts to anti-air or attempts to stop empty jumps. The frame advantage on this move depends on how high in the arrow is used. Used very high in the jump, this move is unsafe. The TK version is slightly advantaged, or, in the case of heavy version, 0 on block. Doing it just before landing can make this move even more advantaged. Shadow Air On Ryo Zan has 12 frames of startup, making it faster than even the 16 frame light version, but has a hitbox roughly the size of heavy Air On Ryo Zan. It doesn't need full Wrath to recapture, and is a common follow-up after a counter hit crouching heavy punch launch. On hit, it allows for a manual of your choice. All of this makes it slightly better in air-to-air situations. Also, when used in reset or wall splat situations, the fast startup and large hitbox means the Tiger Knee version will catch every member of the cast, whereas many members of the cast can jump out of normal Tiger Knees. This move is -6 on block though, so resets with this come with a risk. While mostly used to catch people in the air, it will cause a stagger on a grounded opponent. Influence is a fast but short-range command grab, executed with quarter circle back punch. The light version comes out in 3 frames and must be done at point-blank range. Medium takes 7 frames and heavy takes 10, but they travel a little further and do more damage. In addition to good damage, Influence also adds a lot of potential damage, and can lead to big cash outs down the line. It is also invulnerable to throws during its startup and active frames, and can be used to counter an incoming throw or command grab. The relatively short range of Influence can be augmented with Hisako's forward dash. Influence's behavior is dependent on Wrath status. Without full Wrath, Influence will do a 107 frame hard knockdown, sufficient to recover Wrath and set up follow-up Oki. With full Wrath, Influence opens a combo. Either of these situations is quite advantageous, and combined with the damage and potential damage, Influence is very rewarding to land. Another nice thing about Influence is low recovery. Even if your opponent correctly guesses you're going to do it, they may still have a hard time punishing you. Shadow Influence is an extremely potent move. It is a throw with long range, comes out in 6 frames, and the opponent cannot act once the screen freeze starts. It has 4 active frames, does 16% damage, and refills your wrath entirely before the move is over. To be clear, upon landing this grab, your wrath will be refilled before you can take any other action. One obvious use of this move is punishing moves that are -6 but out of standing light punch range. Even if you are in standing light punch range, you may prefer to have an unbreakable, hard knockdown that refills your wrath completely. Forward dash followed by Shadow Influence is also very difficult to avoid and is a powerful tool in neutral. I will once again mention, because of its importance, that you can late cancel a blocked heavy third On Ryo Zan hit into Shadow Influence to frame trap attempts to punish. You can use this to condition opponents to jump or backdash after blocking your Rekka rather than attempting a punish. One quirk of this move to be aware of is that it's not throw invulnerable during startup, unlike regular Influence. Possession is a command grab, executed with quarter circle back kick, but functions very differently than Influence. It sucks the opponent towards you and grabs them if they get too close to you on the ground. Startup increases from light to heavy, as does suction power and range. Generally, you'll want to use light up close, and higher strengths the further away they are. Unlike Influence, Possession has no throw invulnerability. The rewards for landing Possession are far less too. All versions do 10% damage and no potential damage. It also causes a soft knockdown with no time to regenerate wrath if quick rose. Possession can be useful for Oki, as it will beat blocking and backdashing, forcing and conditioning your opponent to jump. Some characters like Hisako will be able to backdash out of Possession though. Possession also makes for easy tick throws. Because it pulls the opponent towards you and is active for so long, you will never whiff the tick throw because they were still in hit or block stun or pushed too far back. Shadow Possession starts up in 5 frames, sucks opponents in extremely quickly, and does 19% damage. Unfortunately, it is jumpable after the Shadow Freeze, unlike Shadow Influence, and cannot be wrath cancelled, so jumping it is a guaranteed punish. It only causes a soft knockdown like regular Possession. Shadow Possession is best saved for exploiting openings where your opponent cannot act. Moves with high startup can be stuffed with this on reaction, and some tight whiff punishes can be pulled off with this. In other words, this is a highly situational move, and not one you should be super focused on, especially when starting out with Hisako. Let's start with combo openers. As I mentioned before, throws are +6 and can be followed with a light or medium manual. You cannot start with auto doubles or linkers. The KV meter will start at 60, so the combo will have to be short. You also cannot ultra combo from this until after the manual. The third hit of On Ryo Zan, Shadow On Ryo Zan, and Full Wrath Influence are all openers that do not allow for any manuals. You must go into auto doubles or linkers. Vengeance is a bit odd in that there are 2 versions that can happen, depending on how far away you are from the opponent. At short range and on the ground, Hisako will slash back at them. This version allows for a light or medium manual afterwards, but be aware that you can be close enough to get this version, but too far for a light manual. You probably want to play it safe from here and cancel into auto doubles or linkers instead. From longer range, or if the opponent was airborne, Hisako will leap into the air and slam them into the ground. When this happens, Hisako is at much higher frame advantage, and there's time for even a standing heavy kick manual. Counter hit Air On Ryo Zan and Shadow Air On Ryo Zan both allow for your choice of manuals, even after a forward dash or a delay, which can bait timing lockouts in impatient breakers. Now that you're in combo, it's time to mention Hisako's combo trait. By holding down the button when using medium or heavy auto doubles, you can delay the second hit. People who try to break during the delay will get a timing lockout. You can control the amount of delay a bit to change the timing of the second hit, but there is a maximum. These delayed auto doubles will also do slightly more damage. Alright, now on to linkers. Influence should be your default linker. Its medium and heavy versions are faster and harder to combo break than On Ryo Zan. and its longer startup causes timing lockouts and early guest breaks. Influence linkers also have larger manual windows. On Ryo Zan linkers are a mixed bag. The light version is super fast, difficult to break, and useful for resets, while the medium and heavy versions are extremely slow and easy to break. The medium and heavy versions can still be useful, however, as counterbreaker bait or to be occasionally mixed in when your opponent is nervously looking to break the light version. Shadow on Ryo Zan is a shadow linker with huge gaps in between hits, allowing for counterbreaker mind games. You can also add damage and potential damage during lockouts, particularly when your KV is already high. If you do it early enough to get 3 hits in before the lockout is over, it is guaranteed unbreakable. It also has great corner carry. Finally, enders. Influence is a hard knockdown ender, and what I recommend to be the default ender, doing decent damage and putting the opponent on the ground long enough to get full wrath back, and or set up Oki. It also switches sides, so it can put you in the corner and sometimes might not be the best option. The shadow version of this ender does noticeably more damage and puts the opponent down for slightly longer, but is generally not worth the meter. One exception is to waste an opponent's instinct, since the animation for this ender is very long. On Ryo Zan is a wall splat ender. This is the default choice when you have your opponent's back fairly close to the corner. The ender itself does comparatively little damage, but gives the positional advantage and potential for more damage in the follow-up. The safest thing to do after this ender is an immediate light influence, which will give a guaranteed hard knockdown to recover wrath and set up Oki, and does roughly equal damage to influence ender. Sometimes you might end up too far away for influence, but you can use sweep to cause a hard knockdown. You can also go for a throw or for a reset here. Possession is a damage ender, and Shadow Possession does even more damage and switches sides. Both give a soft knockdown. If your opponent quick rises, you'll get no wrath regain and little time to set up Oki. If a damage ender will end a life bar, however, then this is of no concern and is the best option. Otherwise, there is a judgment call to make about damage versus hard knockdown. If you started a combo at full wrath, for example, off a parry or shatter counter or an instinct, then damage ender isn't such a bad idea. The high damage done by a level 4 possession ender, especially Shadow Possession, may also be worth trading in the hard knockdown. Finally, we'll talk briefly about optimal damage. When you manage to lock out the opponent, you have some options. In the case where you either don't have meter or don't want to spend it, you should switch as soon as possible to using light On Ryo Zan linkers and heavy auto doubles. If you want to use meter, you can use a Shadow On Ryo Zan linker about a second or so into the lockout, and still get at least 3 hits in before it's over, therefore making the Shadow linker unbreakable. When you land a counterbreaker, you can either fit in 3 heavy auto doubles and 2 light On Ryo Zan linkers, or 2 heavy auto doubles, separated by a light On Ryo Zan linker and then a Shadow On Ryo Zan linker. Damage ender comes with the risk of reduced Oki, but if you want maximum damage, ending with Shadow Possession is the best damage for 1 bar of meter, and using a Shadow On Ryo Zan linker and Shadow Possession ender is the best damage for 2 bars of meter. Hisako's instinct can be described very briefly. Both the 3-punch and 3-kick versions of Vengeance will now parry lows, mids, and highs, and she gets infinite wrath. The implications of this, however, are vast. Infinite wrath means you will always have wrath to cancel into parry or teleport at any time, making you largely immune to shadow counters, unless you commit to something that can't be cancelled, or are against one of the characters whose shadow counters you can't parry. On Ryo Zan Pressure in particular is now immune to shadow counters, and you don't have to guess high or low on a punish attempt. Every medium or heavy normal you use will now counter hit into an easy hit confirm. Tiger Knee, Air On Ryo Zan, and Influence are now always combo openers, allowing for rapid fire resets that can pile up into huge damage. Hisako is a hybrid grappler character. Like most grapplers, she has slow walk speed, big normals, and command grabs that can lead to hard knockdowns and big damage. However, she also has a super fast forward dash, rekkas, and a parry. Hisako can be a terrifying character to face, as she can reverse momentum at almost any time with the right read or reaction. Any physical hit aimed her way can be reversed with a parry, any throw reversed with influence, or any projectile reversed with Shadow On Ryo Zan. If you instead decide to be patient, she can take advantage of that with a lightning fast dash into a lightning fast grab. Hisako has great tools to bypass all defensive options, only one of them being reactable, and forces you to make tough guesses on wake up, or many tough guesses during combos and resets. The odds are in her favor here, and she can pile on damage when you're wrong. When she is on a roll, she is very strong. Hisako is not without weaknesses though. Her movement is quite limited, and dashing is her only approach that isn't highly reactable or punishable. Her limited approach options can be punished by a good defender if you are too predictable. Many of Hisako's moves are negative or unsafe, sometimes wildly so. Some of this can be mitigated by properly managing your Wrath and Shadow meter, but having to play around that is its own cost to be paid. Defense, particularly on wake up, is also a downside. With her slow backdash, Hisako will often have to block things out or make a hard read to escape pressure. Finally, she is uniquely unable to combo off of light normals without meter or a counter hit.